You know, there's something rather curious about human relationships. We walk through life believing that the people closest to us, those we love, those we trust, have our best interests at heart. And perhaps they do. Or perhaps we've confused their needs with our well-being. Perhaps we've become so accustomed to saying yes that we've forgotten what it feels like to say no. And so we carry on, nodding along, extending ourselves, stretching ourselves thin, until one day we look in the mirror and wonder where we went. When did we become this person who lives entirely for others? Now, I want you to consider something. If you were to sit quietly for just a moment, really quietly, and ask yourself, when was the last time I did something purely for myself? What answer would come? Would it be last week, last month, last year? Or would you discover, with a touch of sadness, that you can't quite remember because somewhere along the way you stopped mattering to yourself? You became a resource, a solution, a pair of hands to fix what others have broken. And nobody asked if you were tired. Nobody wondered if you needed rest. They simply assumed you'd always be there, ready to give, ready to help, ready to sacrifice. This is what we're going to talk about today, not the grand tragedies of life, but the small, quiet thefts, the ways people ask things of you that steal your peace, drain your energy, and leave you wondering why you feel so empty. Because you see, it's not always obvious. They don't come with a sign saying, "I'm about to take advantage of you." No, they come with tears, with guilt, with phrases like, "But you're my father," or "You're my sister," or "If you loved me, you would." And before you know it, you're carrying a weight that was never meant to be yours. So let me share with you 5 things that people will ask of you. 5 things that sound reasonable on the surface, but are anything but. And more importantly, why staying away from people who make these requests might be the wisest thing you ever do. The first thing people will ask is for you to carry their responsibilities as if they were your own. Have you noticed this pattern? Someone close to you, perhaps a son, a daughter, a sibling, comes to you with a problem. Not just any problem, but their problem. And they present it in such a way that suddenly it becomes your emergency. They say things like, "I don't know what to do," or "I'm really struggling," or "Can you help me?" And because you love them, because you want to be helpful, you step in. You offer advice, you offer money, you offer your time. And what begins as a single favor becomes a permanent arrangement. Before long, you're not just helping, you're doing it for them. You're making their phone calls. You're covering their bills. You're raising their children while they go off to live their lives. And when you dare to suggest that perhaps they should handle some of this themselves, you're met with shock, with hurt feelings, with accusations of being selfish or uncaring. How dare you withdraw your support? Don't you know they need you? Let me ask you something. When did their inability to manage their own life become your life sentence? Because that's what it is, isn't it? You sacrifice your rest, your comfort, your dreams, all so they can continue avoiding what they should have faced long ago, their own responsibilities. Think of it like this. Imagine you're walking along a path carrying your own backpack. It's heavy enough. It contains your worries, your plans, your needs. And then someone comes along and says, "Here, can you carry mine too? Just for a little while." So you take it because you're kind. But then another person appears, and another, and another, and before you know it, you're bent double under the weight of everyone else's baggage while they walk freely ahead, unencumbered, expecting you to keep up. This is not help. This is exploitation dressed up as love. And the cruelest part is that the more you give, the more they expect. They don't see your struggle because they're too busy enjoying their freedom. And when you finally collapse from exhaustion, they won't be there to pick you up. They'll be puzzled, perhaps even annoyed, that you can no longer serve them. You are not a support system for adults who refuse to support themselves. You are not a safety net for people who keep jumping off cliffs expecting you to catch them. At some point, and that point is now, you have to ask yourself why you're doing this. Is it really love? Or is it fear? Fear of being seen as selfish, fear of being disliked, fear of setting a boundary and watching them walk away. But here's what they don't tell you. The people who walk away when you set boundaries are the same people who were never truly there for you in the first place. They were there for what you could provide. And the moment you stop providing, the relationship ends, which tells you everything you need to know about its true nature. So let me be very clear. If someone is asking you to carry what they should be carrying themselves, if they're turning their problems into your problems, if they're making you responsible for their happiness, their finances, their choices, you have every right to say no. Not maybe, not we'll see, no. Because your life is not a rescue mission for people who won't save themselves. The second thing people will ask is to borrow money with no intention of returning it. Oh, this is a delicate one, isn't it? Because money and relationships, they mix like oil and water. Someone you care about approaches you, they're in trouble, they need money. Not a lot, they say, just enough to get by. Just to cover this bill or that emergency or this one-time situation, and they absolutely promise they'll pay you back next week, next month, as soon as things get better. So you lend it because you want to help, because you believe their promise, because you think, well, if I were in their position, I'd hope someone would help me. And at first it feels good. You've solved their problem. You've been the hero. You've proved your love. But then something interesting happens. Or rather, something doesn't happen. The money doesn't come back. And when you gently mention it, they look hurt. They remind you of their struggles. They suggest that you're being insensitive bringing it up. Or they promise again, soon, very soon. And you believe them because you want to believe them. Months pass, maybe years. And that money you lent has vanished into a black hole. But worse than losing the money is what you've lost in the relationship. Because now there's tension, there's resentment. Every time you see them, you think about what they owe you. And they know you're thinking about it. And instead of addressing it honestly, they avoid you. Or they act as if nothing happened. Or they ask to borrow more. Let me tell you what's really happening here. When someone borrows money with no real plan to return it, they're not borrowing, they're taking. And they're counting on your discomfort with conflict to let them get away with it. They know that bringing up money feels vulgar, feels cheap, feels like you're putting dollars above relationship. So they use your own values against you. Your generosity, your kindness, your reluctance to make things awkward. But think about this. If they truly valued the relationship, would they put it at risk by taking your money? If they truly respected you, would they make promises they have no intention of keeping? Of course not. What they're really saying is that their temporary comfort matters more than your financial security, that their wants outweigh your needs, that you exist as a bank they can withdraw from without ever making a deposit. And here's the painful truth. Lending money rarely solves the real problem. Because if someone is in financial trouble, a loan from you is just a patch. It might cover this month's crisis, but it won't fix the behavior that created the crisis in the first place. Next month, there will be another emergency, another need, another request. And if you've already lent once, they'll see you as an easy target, a reliable source, someone who can't say no. Now, some of you might be thinking, but what if it's a real emergency? What if they genuinely need help? And I would say this. There's a difference between helping someone in crisis and enabling someone's pattern. A real emergency is rare. It's the medical bill that comes out of nowhere, the car breaking down when they need it for work, the unexpected loss of income through no fault of their own. And even then, even in genuine emergencies, a person of integrity will do everything in their power to repay you. They'll set up a plan. They'll make regular payments, even small ones. But if someone is coming to you regularly, if their life seems to be one emergency after another, if they always need just a little more to get by, then you're not dealing with bad luck. You're dealing with bad choices, and your money won't fix that. It will only postpone the inevitable moment when they have to face their own patterns and change them. So what do? You protect yourself. You recognize that lending money to people who won't return it is not generosity, it's foolishness. And you have worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to watch your savings disappear into someone else's bottomless need. Your financial security is not a negotiable item. Your peace of mind is not for sale, and anyone who asks you to risk either is not thinking about your well-being. They're thinking only of themselves. If someone truly needs help, there are other ways to provide it. You can offer advice. You can help them create a budget. You can point them toward resources. But handing over money, especially significant amounts, especially without a clear agreement about repayment, is asking for trouble. And at this stage of your life, trouble is the last thing you need. The third thing people will ask is for you to choose sides in conflicts that have nothing to do with you. This one is particularly insidious because it comes wrapped in loyalty. Someone you love is fighting with someone else you love. Maybe it's your children arguing with each other. Maybe it's a sibling feud. Maybe it's extended family drama. And suddenly, you're pulled in. They come to you, each side, each person, presenting their case. explaining why they're right and the other is wrong. And then comes the question, the trap. Whose side are you on? What a terrible position to be in. Because the moment you choose, you lose. If you side with one, you alienate the other. If you try to stay neutral, both sides accuse you of not caring. And if you attempt to mediate, to bring peace, you often end up blamed by everyone when the peace doesn't hold. Let me tell you what's happening here. These people are not really asking for your wisdom or your help. They're asking you to validate their position. They want you to confirm that they're the victim, that they're justified, that the other person is entirely at fault. And by pulling you in, they're trying to build an army, trying to gather supporters, trying to win not through being right, but through having more people on their side. But think about this carefully. What do you gain by getting involved? Even if you successfully mediate and bring temporary peace, what have you really accomplished? Because people who are truly ready to resolve their conflicts will resolve them with or without you. And people who aren't ready will simply fight again, probably over something just as trivial, and once again expect you to referee. Meanwhile, what do you lose? Your peace, your neutrality, your ability to love both parties without reservation. Because once you've taken a side, once you've said this one is right and that one is wrong, you've created a division that may never fully heal. Every future interaction will be colored by that choice. Every holiday gathering will carry tension. Every phone call will require careful navigation. And for what? To solve a problem that isn't yours, to referee a fight between grown adults who should be capable of handling their own disagreements. That's not wisdom. That's volunteering for unnecessary suffering. There's an old saying, when two people are fighting, the third person who gets involved gets hit by both. And it's true, because no matter how carefully you try to be fair, no matter how much you try to see both sides, at some point each person will feel you didn't support them enough. Each will remember not what you did for them, but what you didn't do. And your reward for trying to help will be resentment from all directions. So what's the answer? Simple. Don't get involved. When someone comes to you with their grievances, you listen. You acknowledge their feelings, but you do not take sides. You do not become their champion. You do not carry messages back and forth between warring parties like some kind of emotional postal service. You say, with kindness but firmness, this is between you and them. I love you both. I'm not taking sides. Work it out yourselves. Will they like this answer? Probably not. They may push back. They may try to guilt you. They may suggest that if you really loved them, you'd support them, but hold your ground. Because what you're really doing is respecting everyone involved. You're respecting their ability to solve their own problems. You're respecting the relationship by not poisoning it with resentment. And most importantly, you're respecting yourself by refusing to be used as a weapon in someone else's war. Your job at this stage of life is not to fix every broken relationship in your family. Your job is to maintain your own peace, to love people without becoming entangled in their drama, to be available without being involved, and that requires boundaries. The clear, firm, loving boundaries that say, I care about you, but I won't be pulled into this. The fourth thing people will ask is for you to change who you are to make them comfortable. Now we're getting to something really interesting, because this request comes in many forms. Sometimes it's direct, sometimes it's subtle, but the message is always the same. You are too much, or not enough, or wrong, or outdated, or embarrassing. And they, in their infinite wisdom, know how you should be instead. Maybe it's your clothing. They say you dress too old-fashioned, or too young, or too bright, or too plain. Maybe it's your opinions. They want you to stop talking about certain things, stop holding certain views, stop being so set in your ways. Maybe it's your hobbies. They think what you enjoy is silly, or boring, or beneath you. Or maybe it's bigger than that. Maybe they want you to change your entire lifestyle, move somewhere else, live differently, be different. And here's what makes this particularly painful. These requests usually come from people who claim to love you. They're not strangers criticizing you from a distance. They're family, close friends, people whose opinions you value. And they frame their demands as concern. They say they're worried about you. They say they just want what's best. They say if you'd only change this one thing, everything would be better. But let me ask you something. Better for who? Because when someone asks you to change something fundamental about yourself, they're not thinking about your happiness. They're thinking about theirs. They're uncomfortable with who you are. They're embarrassed by you. Or they have some image in their mind of who you should be, and you're not matching it. And rather than accepting you as you are, they want to reshape you into something more convenient for them. Think about what they're really asking. They're asking you to pretend, to put on a mask, to hide the parts of yourself that make you unique. They're asking you to trade your authenticity for their approval. And that's not a fair trade. That's not even close to a fair trade. Because who are you without your quirks, without your preferences, without the things that light you up and make you who you are? Here's what's fascinating. The people who ask you to change are often the ones who haven't done much changing themselves. They haven't examined their own lives. They haven't questioned their own assumptions. They simply follow the crowd, do what's expected, and then demand that you do the same. And when you resist, when you insist on being yourself, they become offended. But you've lived long enough to know something they apparently haven't learned. That the opinions of others are just that, opinions, not facts, not laws, not requirements. Just thoughts in someone else's head about how they think you should live your life. And you are under no obligation to live according to someone else's thoughts. Now, I'm not saying you should never grow or change. Growth is beautiful. Learning is necessary. But there's a vast difference between changing because you to become better and changing because someone else can't accept who you are. One comes from within, the other comes from fear. One expands you, the other diminishes you. So when someone suggests you need to be different, pause. Ask yourself, is this about genuine growth Or is this about their discomfort? Is this suggestion actually helpful? Or is it asking me to shrink so they can feel bigger? And if the answer is the latter, if what they're really saying is, be less yourself so I can be more comfortable, then the answer is no. Not maybe. Not I'll think about it. No, because here's the thing they don't understand. You've earned the right to be yourself. You've lived through enough years, enough experiences, enough trials to know who you are. You've paid your dues. You've learned your lessons. And if someone can't accept that, if your authenticity is too much for them to handle, that tells you everything you need to know about the relationship. It tells you they love an idea of you more than they love the actual you. And that's not real love. That's not real friendship. That's a transaction where you perform and they approve. And you're too old for performances. So wear what makes you happy. Listen to the music that speaks to your soul. Hold the opinions you've formed through decades of living. Be exactly who you are. And let those who can't accept it find somewhere else to direct their criticism. Because you didn't come this far to start hiding now. The fifth thing people will ask is for you to sacrifice your peace for their comfort. This is perhaps the most insidious request of all, because it doesn't usually come as a direct ask. Instead, it arrives as expectation, as assumption, as emotional manipulation dressed up as relationship. It looks like this. Someone in your life is unhappy. Maybe they're struggling with their choices. Maybe they're in a situation of their own making. Maybe they're just generally dissatisfied with life. And rather than dealing with their unhappiness themselves, they expect you to fix it, to absorb it, to make it your problem. They call at all hours, needing to talk. They show up unannounced, expecting comfort. They lean on you emotionally, financially, practically, until you're bent double under the weight. And if you try to create space, if you try to set limits, they respond with hurt. How can you be so cold? Don't you care? Don't you love me? What they're really saying is this: my emotional state is more important than yours. My needs matter more than your peace. You should sacrifice your serenity so I don't have to deal with my discomfort. And that's not a reasonable ask. That's emotional tyranny. Because let me be clear about something. You cannot carry someone else's emotional burdens without drowning in them. You cannot fix another person's unhappiness. You cannot love them enough, help them enough, sacrifice enough to make them whole. That work, that deep internal work of finding peace and contentment, that's their job, not yours. But many people, especially those who've spent their lives caring for others, fall into this trap. They think love means endless availability. They think caring means never saying no. They think if they just try hard enough, give enough, sacrifice enough, they can save the other person from their pain. But it doesn't work that way. Because what you're really teaching them is that they don't have to take responsibility for their own emotional life. You become their crutch, their emotional support animal. And the more you provide, the more they lean, until you're both falling down. So here's what needs to happen. You need to protect your peace like it's the most precious thing you own, because it is. Peace of mind, calm, the ability to wake up without dread, to move through your day without constant anxiety. That's not a luxury. That's life itself. And anyone who asks you to give it up for their sake is asking too much. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become cold or distant. It means you love people without losing yourself. You support them without drowning in their problems. You care without carrying what they should be carrying themselves. And when they push back, when they accuse you of being selfish or uncaring, you stand firm, because you know the truth. Taking care of yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. And anyone who truly loves you would want you to have peace, not give it away. So there you have it. 5 things people will ask of you that you must refuse. To carry their responsibilities, to lend money you'll never see again, to choose sides in their conflicts, to change who you are, to sacrifice your peace for their comfort. And if you're wondering how to actually do this, how to say no when you've spent a lifetime saying yes, here's your answer. You do it with love, but you do it firmly. You don't explain endlessly. You don't justify. You don't negotiate. You simply state your boundary, and then you hold it. Because here's what nobody tells you. The people who respect you will accept your boundaries. They might not like them, they might be disappointed, but they'll respect them. And the people who don't respect your boundaries, well, they've just shown you who they really are. And that's valuable information. You've lived long enough to know that life is short, that time is precious, that peace once lost is hard to regain. So protect it, guard it, refuse to give it away for any reason to any person, no matter how much they claim to need it. Your life belongs to you, not to their expectations, not to their demands, not to their comfort, to you. And the most radical thing you can do it yourselves is simply live it on your own terms.